Hello, students. Welcome back. Let's talk about substitutes and complements. So looking at the screen over here, we can talk about substitutes. What are substitutes? Well, one thing you can substitute for another, like a substitute teacher. If your teacher gets sick, a substitute can come in and do an equivalent job, hopefully. So let's do Coke and Pepsi, okay? Many people cannot tell the difference between the two flavors. I can, but most people cannot. And therefore, if the price of one becomes more expensive, they will dump it and buy the other one. Does that make sense? So let's talk about in economic terms. Looking at the graphs here, let's assume Pepsi raises price $2.50 to $4 on the top graph. It's a price change. Notice it must be along the curve because it's a price change. And they lose, let's say, 7 million customers a week, 15 minus 8. They lose 7 million customers a week because people don't want to pay $4 for a can of soda. Then what has to happen is those customers, those 7 million people, they have to go somewhere. Now, assume that we're only talking about cola drinkers, okay? And so those 7 million will go over here to Coke from 15 to 22. There's 7 million will go over to Coke. But notice, Coke did not change its price at all. So we're not going to move along the demand curve anywhere because that would change Coke's price, and Coke didn't change its price. What happened is all of those 7 million people, they're distributed along the curve. So we need a new curve distributing people the same way. Just move to the right directly to increase the demand. So just shift to the right, find a dot to the right at the same price, and then put on a new curve. Now let's talk about complements. Complements are things that complement each other. Complement with an E for economics, not for an I, like I look great, but complements here with an E for economics in the middle. And they mean things that go together. So let's talk about, for example, tea, coffee, and milk. Okay, coffee and milk usually go together. Price of coffee goes up. People are going to drink less coffee. Again, it's due to price, so it's along the demand curve. And then what's going to happen if a vendor, a local convenience store is selling coffee, they're going to need to buy less milk, right? So what happens again is we see that the quantity of the milk, here we go, we lose 7 million customers, 15 to 8. And the milk, small milk containers that go in coffee, they're also going to lose 7 million customers, 15 to 8. But notice that the price has not changed for milk, right? Milk is innocent. Milk didn't do anything. So you need to just move the equilibrium straight along the same price. We don't want to move in the demand curve, which would change the price. Straight along the same price, just move down to lower quantity and then put a new demand curve because all of these 7 million people leaving, you see that they're spread out. They're spread out at all different prices. So we're just going to assume that they're spread out the same way along a new demand curve, and they have all different price preferences. They make their own demand curve. Just take a part of this demand curve and move it over here at a lower level. Now notice what would happen to tea as a result, since tea is a substitute for coffee for a lot of people. The same thing as before with coffee and Pepsi, the price of coffee goes up, like the price of Pepsi goes up, and the quantity, simply the quantity only, not the price, the quantity only of tea goes up, like the quantity of Coke went up on the previous slide. And that's what you have to understand about substitutes and complements. To recap, if we don't go through the whole structural change in both markets, Pepsi and Coke markets, we can just say if the price of one good goes up, the quantity sold of the other good goes up, or the substitute goes up. And we can say if the price of one good goes up, the quantity sold of its complement goes down. Okay, so please study that in common sense terms. If one good becomes too expensive, you buy the other good. And if one good becomes too expensive, the good that you buy with it also becomes less popular. Okay, and that's the end of that explanation. Thank you.